We're going to take a look at two different ways to use shapes as masks in Photoshop. While I find that using a shape layer to create a vector mask is easiest when you're cutting out a single photo, when I'm working with multiple shapes or multiple layers, I find that using clipping masks are easier and more flexible to work with. So the first way is, let's imagine that I just have this single layer here, the ocean, and I want it to appear within a shape. So from the toolbar, I'll select the polygon tool, and I want it to create a shape just because it's easier for us to see. I could just have it create a path, but I think this is going to be easier. I'll give it a fill of black with no stroke, and I want it to have 6 sides. I'll click and drag out in the image area, and I can use the spacebar in order to reposition it, and I'll move my mouse in order to rotate it, holding down the Shift key until I get the points at the top and the bottom. When I release the cursor, that's going to fill that shape with black. Now, I need 5 copies of this, so I'll switch to the Move tool by selecting the V key. Then, to make a copy, I'll hold down the Option key on the Mac or the Alt key on Windows and just drag over a copy until it snaps to the edge on the right side of the original or the left side of the copy. Then I'll release the keyboard modifiers, hold down the Shift key, and just use the right arrow key and tap it twice or maybe 3 times to put a little bit of space in between them. In fact, let's add a little more. I'm going to tap it 4 times. Then I'll do the same thing. I'll hold down the Option key on Mac or the Alt key on Windows. And this time when I drag it out, we can see that when I get the equal spacing between this new copy, Smart Guides is going to help me by snapping it into position. I'll do it again, just holding down the Option key and dragging out. And I need 1 more of these. So I'll just drag out the 5th copy. All right, now I want 4 more copies above and below. So I'll select maybe the first 4 polygons in the Layers panel. Again, holding down the Option key or the Alt key. This time I'll just drag them and reposition them down below. And then holding down the Option key again, I'll drag out another copy and position those above. All right, so I've got this nice shape, but I need to actually move that down a little bit. So I'm just going to use my arrow keys to nudge it. All right, that looks better. So I have all of these different shapes on my Layers panel, and I want to merge them onto a single layer. So I'll select them all and then use the keyboard shortcut Command E on Mac or Control E on Windows, or we can use the Layer menu and just choose to merge shapes. But at the beginning, I had said that I just wanted to use a vector mask on this single layer. So instead of using these shapes, I'm going to switch to the Paths panel, and I'm going to duplicate this path by just dragging it down to the new path icon. Now that I have a copy of this, I can use this path, because it will be my active targeted path, as my new vector mask. So returning to the Layers panel, I'll click on the Ocean layer, hide the visibility of that shape layer because we don't need it, and then choose Layer, Vector Mask, and then Current Path. We can see that Photoshop has turned that path into a vector mask. Of course, it is re-editable, so I could select the Path Selection or the Direct Selection tool, depending on whether or not I want to select an entire shape and move it, or I'll undo that if I want to just select a specific point or maybe multiple points and then reposition those. But as we can see, it's very easy to create a path and use that as a vector mask. All right, I'm going to right-click on the mask and just delete it for now and show you the other method that I tend to use when I have more than one layer. In this case, I've got this ocean layer as well as a wave layer, and I want them both to appear only within that shape that we created. So what I can do is I can put the shape at the bottom of the layer stack so that the 2 other photographs sit on top of it. Then I can select the ocean and choose Layer, Create Clipping Mask. I'll do the same for the wave, but I'll use a keyboard shortcut. I'll hold down the Option key on Mac or the Alt key on Windows and just click between these 2 layers. So now both the wave and the ocean are masked to that shape layer. And now I only want the wave to appear on the left side, so I'll quickly choose my polygonal lasso tool and I'll start making a selection, just selecting down here through the gaps in the polygons, and then coming around the outside here, and then adding a layer mask by clicking on the mask icon at the bottom of the layers panel. If I want to resize the wave so that it fits a little bit better within that shape, I can unlink the shape from the mask, select the wave layer, use Command-T on Mac or Control-T on Windows in order to free transform, but I can't see the transformation handles because that layer is so large, so I'll use Command-0 on Mac or Control-0 on Windows in order to fit the transformation handles on the screen. And then I'll hold the Option key so that I am transforming from the center. Just make that a little bit smaller and then reposition it as such. Tap the Enter or Return key in order to apply it. Now we're seeing the checkerboard in the background, but I can use the Photoshop menu to select Preferences and then Transparency and Gamut, or on Windows you'd use the Edit menu, Preferences, Transparency and Gamut, and then I'll just change my grid size to none so that we can see what this would look like with a white background. So there you go, 2 different ways to use shape layers, either as a vector mask for a single layer or as the base for a clipping mask for multiple layers.